Hey B, the last few days have been pretty busy, and I figured daily updates weren't wanted, so I let yesterday go just as well, since, again, like I said, busyness. Anyway, I went to speak with her on Wednesday night when my shift began. I found her still awake, as is starting to be more common than I thought it would be. I asked her what she might like for Christmas, since everyone was getting presents after all, and I needed to tell Santa what she'd like before time ran short. She responded by telling me that she didn't want anything, and flatly that there was no Santa. Ouch. I tried not to react viscerally to her statement, though I wasn't sure how to respond. And after a long silence, and not knowing at all what to do, I pulled out my DS from my pocket and asked her if she'd like to play it for a bit. She revealed that she had a DS of her own before the accident, which wasn't really surprising, and when I turned on EBA, it soon came out as well that she had a copy of Owenden. Again, not that surprising in particular, since she speaks and reads Japanese, so it wouldn't have been a problem importing. Seems she'd been looking forward to playing EBA before the accident though. She was a little hesitant at first, but finally agreed to try it, and so I fetched her prosthetic arm and helped her don it. It was a new experience for me. Then I handed the DS over to her. Problems quickly arose though when she started to play the first stage, on normal difficulty. She said she'd been playing Owenden on insane difficulty before the accident, with the first note of pride in her voice that I had heard yet, so normal seemed like it would be easy for her, but it didn't turn out that way. She'd been right-handed before the accident, you see, and, well, she's gotten a bit better with her left hand since, but it's not the same yet. Another aspect of her rehab. And, well, people with EBA that have tried playing with their offhand know where I'm going with this. She did poorly. Embarrassingly poorly. I know I would have been embarrassed, as someone who's rather good at the game by now too. She reacted by throwing the DS down, and it bounced off the corner of the bed, nearly hitting the floor. I was just barely lucky enough and fast enough to catch it. She turned away from me, staring at the wall, flushed. I felt pretty insensitive not to have seen this coming. I had to try to fix it. I put on a chagrined expression and said that it was mean of me and that I was sorry. Then I switched the game back into easy mode and restarted the stage, hanging onto the DS this time, and I tried playing it with my own left hand. I did pretty shittily, as I'm sure you can imagine, at least as bad as her actually on normal, and when I failed and lost the stage, despite really trying to win it, I smiled, embarrassingly as well, and offered it back to her, pointing out that I had been playing on this version's insane difficulty earlier that day, and I sucked with my left hand. She didn't accept it quickly, and eventually I convinced her to try it again, but by the third try, which came after a bit more convincing, she managed to beat it. I congratulated her, happily, and I managed to beat it myself when she passed the DS back to me, insisting that I do it too. This continued onward, and she got better and better, faster and faster than I did. I think she has a real knack for music, following the rhythm of the beats only after hearing the songs once, while I failed music class and dropped out of the band in junior high. I got called away by another patient around 2:30, leaving the DS with her and telling her I'd be back soon. Unfortunately, it took longer than anticipated, and I only managed to return around 3, whereupon I found her asleep with the DS still on her lap and earbuds still in her ears. I carefully removed both, managing not to wake her, and shifting her from a semi-sitting position to help lay her down, and after a moment's thought, I keyed a message into the DS utility saying, "Have fun, don't play the Xmas stage." Then I placed it on her bedside table, heading back to my station and fetching the AC adapter from my backpack, returning and plugging it in and leaving it there. I left a note in the log about what happened that night, and the night passed uneventfully, over before much longer really. When I got up and about on Thursday afternoon, I gave her social worker a call, and after filling her in on what I was up to and the general situation of the previous night's DS activities, and plans for Christmas gifts. I asked her what had been done with her family's possessions after the accident. I was informed that they had been locked up in a storage container at a company, with that social worker having the key. When I brought up the possibility of retrieving her DS Lite and games from inside, the worker hemmed and hawed at the trouble it'd take to find it, but I kept insisting, politely, bringing up how she seemed happier than I'd ever seen her before while playing with mine, how I'd helped search for hers. And eventually she relented and said she'd look into it. I thanked her for her patience and her Christmas spirit. The call was over before you knew it. I ended up going to the mall and picking her up a copy of EBA from EB and headed home and wrapped it up. Not much else happened, and I didn't hear back from the social worker, so I headed into work a bit early. I had a chat with her afternoon/evening shift nurse on how the DS had been received during the day, and it seemed she'd been playing with it pretty well and even took it to rehab with her, which was nice to hear. She said that her rehab nurse in charge of her arm usage had sent alongside a note in particular praising the idea of giving it to her, since she'd been getting more practice with her Moley electric hand than she had been before. It was a great success. Party time. I finally headed to my station. I read through reports, etc., and I checked in on her room before much longer. She was awake and perhaps waiting for me, looking up from her DS when I opened the door. I asked how she was doing, and if she was ready to kick my butt some more. She actually smiled a bit at that. The first time I'd ever seen one from her so far, and it was all worth it, let me tell you. I couldn't control my own grin as I moved the chair and had a seat beside her, whereupon she showed me that she'd actually finished easy mode and had moved on to normal mode. I asked her if she'd gotten my message and played the Christmas stage, and she got a bit quieter, then shook her head no, and said she'd started it and watched the introduction, but then she shut it off before playing the stage. Already upset by it, though she didn't admit directly, I reached out to pat her shoulder lightly and said it was okay. And it's a sad stage even for grown-ups, and she didn't need to play it just yet. Changing the subject somewhat, we started playing again, having a nice time with her skills having improved considerably since the last time I saw them. She was now kicking my ass quite decisively, which seemed to please her. That was perfectly fine by me, since knowing she was doing better than some able-bodied person is a lot more important to me than my gaming ego, and it was somewhat uneventful. Really, and quite pleasant, for me, certainly. For the both of us, hopefully. The only quirk is that she seemed to have memorized a lot of the songs, just after a day or so of playing, and ever so often she'd start singing along as she played, quietly, almost as if she didn't notice she was doing so. It was incredibly cute, frankly, and she really does have a great voice, and she knows how to use it. It only got a little worrisome when she started singing along to Lala, the Cap White stage. People that know of the song or have played the stage will probably get why it was a little nerve-wracking, even if she didn't have the energy of the woman in the cover of the song. I have no idea what the original sounds like, and even if she didn't really seem to grasp the full meaning of what she was singing, it's not quite something that someone who gave her the game would want others to hear her repeating. I tried to explain this to her the best I could without getting into details as to why it was an inappropriate song for someone her age to sing. And well, she may not have really gotten it at all, but she wouldn't be singing that in public anymore. I felt kind of bad about asking her to restrain herself, a sense of expression from her, but I wasn't sure if anyone would have any other opinions on it. Anyway, we played for an hour and a half or so, long enough for her to get to the last stage on normal difficulty with mostly Bs. I only managed one B and mostly Cs and Ds, otherwise, I suck. Before she clearly started to get tired, and after a short while I helped tuck her in and helped her get comfortable, giving her the mini bear to hold on to while I wished her a good sleep. I didn't mention anything about dreams, since I get the feeling that even wishing her sweet ones would do more harm than good, even if it's just a little. I stayed with her, sitting in the chair until she drifted off and began sleeping peacefully, more or less. I felt pretty good, I have to admit, and I left the room shortly thereafter. Not much else happened during my shift. A couple of other patients needed a thing or two, wrote up some reports. I headed home when it was my time to. Since I've woken up today, nothing much has happened, but I got a message from the social worker saying she'd have time to check out the storage unit just after she gets off work, so I called her back and said I'd be there. Things are going pretty well so far, I'd say, B. It's nice to finally have some good news to report on her. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it continues. Hi there. Thank you for making it this far. I'm not sure the next time that I'll record or post, but I still plan on, at the very least, reading through this story and others more too, whether that's just on my personal time or recording it as well. It's been a while and it's been a rough year, but hopefully I'll be more productive here.